Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners and welcome to Souptober Day 5. We're gonna go back to our original format, which is where I pick a recipe at random, we check to see what ingredients I already have, we pick up the remaining ingredients as cheaply as possible, and then we make the soup and try the soup. So soup of the day is like a restaurant term, and it was a way to use up leftover ingredients from the day before to maximize profits and cut back on food waste. It's a really fun idea, and it's something you can kind of implement in your own home. If you have a bunch of leftover ingredients, just experiment with throwing them in a soup. You probably will come up with some really fun ideas. I know that in my experience, some of the best meals that I make are usually just when I'm slapping stuff in a pot and calling it dinner. But we are down to 6 different recipes. I guess I don't need to shuffle them up, especially if I'm using just a random number generator, but I'm just gonna give them a quick little shuffle. Random number generator. We are down to 6. And it picked number 4. So here's our stack. So 1, 2, come on, 3, and what is number 4? Today we're making clam chowder, which is one of my favorite soups, and I've only ever bought clam chowder. I've never made clam chowder. That's why I picked this one out, and it seems like it should be fairly easy to make. This recipe is from damndelicious.com, and it calls for bacon, butter, garlic, onion, thyme, flour, milk, stock, clams, a bay leaf, potatoes, half and half, salt and pepper, and then some fresh parsley leaves. I am very picky about clam chowder, and I used to exclusively buy the Progresso brand clam chowder. To this day, that is still like my go-to canned clam chowder. I don't like any other brands. I don't really like how they're seasoned mostly. I feel like clam chowder should be very clam forward, and a lot of those other soups just have an overabundance of spices that I feel like make the clam chowder not really taste like clam chowder. There's also a restaurant over here where I live that serves a really good clam chowder, but it is made with a lot of heavy cream, and it is very, very thick and heavy. When I have ordered it there, I've really enjoyed it, but I have also found that it just kind of weighs me down and it doesn't make me feel the greatest. I am way overthinking this recipe because I have such a strong relationship with clam chowder. It's like my favorite soup of all time. This recipe calls for bacon, which none of the clam chowders that I have ever had in my entire life have had bacon in them. So I do have bacon, but I am considering leaving it out of the recipe, and I think I might, just because I know that none of the clam chowders I've ever had have had bacon. So, and plus, bacon adds a lot of cost to potentially an already kind of costly recipe, because I imagine that the canned clams are not going to be super cheap. I am going to choose to omit the bacon. As far as the rest of the ingredients, butter, we have that. Garlic, we have that. I did pick up a new bag of onions a couple of days ago because they were on sale for $2.50, so I do have an onion. I have thyme in my spice cabinet, and I have flour in my pantry. Milk I have. In place of the vegetable stock, I'm going to use chicken bouillon powder. The clams I do need to buy, and the bay leaf I don't have. It does call for potatoes. It does say russet potatoes, but I have gold, so that's what I'm going to use. All right, so as far as what I need to buy to make this, all I need to buy is clams. I'll check the price on bay leaves. If not, I might just leave that out. And then half and half. So I am slightly nervous because this is my favorite soup and I really want it to be good. I really want to do it justice. Let's see how cheaply we can make clam chowder with the ingredients I already have. So that wasn't bad at all. The clams were $2.79, $2.89. Oh shoot, I already forgot the price. The clams were $2.78 each. I got 2 cans, so that is a little over $5 for clams. I was able to get this small pack of bay leaves. When it comes to spices, sometimes they're located in multiple places throughout the store, so don't just limit yourself to the spice aisle. Check the international aisle as well. I was able to get this little pack of bay leaves for $1 over in the international section. Over in the regular section, the bay leaves would have been $2 or a little over $2. And then half and half was $2.99. I could have gotten the little one that was $1.99, but it was $1 more to get twice as much. So I did just spend the extra $1 because I'm sure some of my other soups will also require some kind of cream or half and half. So I spent just a little under $10 on everything. The only vegetable prep that I need to do is peel and dice the potatoes and peel and dice the onions. So I will go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll get started on the soup. So potatoes and onions chopped. One thing that it says to do is to drain the clams but save the liquid. So let's do that. I did get minced clams instead of chopped clams because I just want a little bit of clam in like every bite. So this is still kind of part of the prep phase. We're just gonna drain the clams but save the liquid. There is a lot more liquid in here than there are clams. I kind of thought it would be like tuna, but as you can see, it's like barely even half full after you drain it. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I got about a cup and a quarter of clam broth out of these 2 cans. So that's a lot less clam than I thought they would come with. In a second jar, I'm gonna measure out 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of water, and to that, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of my chicken bouillon powder and just kind of mix that in. So those are our liquids. We've got our clam broth, and then we have milk and chicken broth or chicken bouillon. All right, I guess with that, let's go ahead and get started on our clam chowder. It says 2 tablespoons of butter, but I'm gonna be using 3 because I'm not gonna be cooking the bacon or using bacon fat in this recipe. So I'm just gonna add an extra tablespoon of butter to compensate for the bacon fat that I'm not putting in it. All right, next we're gonna add in our minced onion. That was quite a large onion. And I'm also gonna add in some garlic. It says 2 cloves, so I'm just gonna kind of eyeball that with my pre-minced garlic. And we're supposed to let that cook until softened. There's a quote I really like, and I think it's funny, and I think about it all the time, which is that 2 cloves of garlic is never enough garlic, unless the recipe is how to cook 2 cloves of garlic, and even then use 4. Once the onion is softened, I'm gonna add in 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. You always try to use the same amount of flour as you use fat. So because we use 3 tablespoons of butter, that is why we're gonna use 3 tablespoons of flour. You could omit the flour and make this entirely gluten-free and do a cornstarch slurry to thicken it up at the end as well. It's got a really kind of basic roux going on here, and we're just gonna let that cook for about a minute, which it pretty much has at this point. So now we're gonna start adding in, I'm gonna do my milk and bouillon mixture first. Starting with just a little bit. Start to dissolve that flour. A little bit more. And now I can go in with the rest of it. That's typically how I like to do it, kind of 2 small additions and then just dump in the rest. You're also gonna add in our clam stock and 1 of our bay leaves. It says to let this kind of cook until it's slightly thickened, so we're gonna let that happen. Next, we're gonna add in our diced potatoes. This was about 1 large and 2 medium potatoes. It said 2 larges. I'm so excited about clam chowder. All right, it says to bring this up to a boil, which it is almost boiling. Then once it's boiling, you're supposed to cover and simmer it. It says for 12 to 15 minutes until the potatoes are cooked. I'm gonna do 12. That's usually a good time for me. I usually find that my potatoes are cooked after 12 minutes. Especially depends on what size you dice them. I used my little vegetable chopper, so I know that they're all uniformly diced and they should be cooked in about 10 to 12 minutes anyways. Potatoes should be about done. They've been simmering for 12 minutes. Let me give it a stir. Soup is quite thick already. I do have a little bit of browning at the bottom, so maybe I should have stopped and stirred it a couple times during cooking. If you want to follow this recipe, that's probably something I would suggest to do. I did realize that I forgot to add the thyme earlier, so let's go and add, this is a half teaspoon, which is not a lot. It also says now we're supposed to add in our clams. So again, I'm using minced clams. I'm going to tell you how I know that clam chowder is my favorite soup. It is because it is the only soup that I will ever pay to order at a restaurant. Now we're going to add in 1 cup of our half and half, and it says to add more if need to, or if your soup is too thick, but I'm just going to do the 1 cup. And then this is me reenacting adding salt and pepper. And that's my just in case my camera battery died and any of that got cut off. And that is my note to editing Rebecca to include a reenactment if needed. I think our soup is pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna let this thicken up just a smidge and then we're gonna try it. And here we go, Souptober day 5, my all-time favorite soup, clam chowder. Really hoping that this recipe does not let me down. It does say to garnish with parsley or bacon if desired. As I mentioned, I am a clam chowder purist. I shall not be putting bacon on this, and I shall not be putting parsley on this. I do have some oyster crackers if I want to add those. Like, clam chowder is sacred to me, basically. I'm not a New Englander. I mean, my mom is from New Hampshire, my dad is from Michigan, but New England clam chowder is like, I don't know. It's just always been my favorite. I can't explain it. I don't even know when I first tried it. All I know is that my entire life, it has been my favorite soup. I guess now is also an interesting time to bring up the fact that there is this kind of clam chowder, which is a cream-based broth, and then there is a tomato-y clam chowder, and I don't think I've ever had the tomato-y one. I think most people are more familiar with the creamy clam chowder than they are the tomato one. Let me get my bowl koozie. I'm nervous. I hope it's good. My life is complete. I'm so dramatic. I'm sorry. Clam chowder does not need a lot of anything. It has a lot of richness already from the clams. My potatoes do have the slightest bit of bite left to them. I probably should have let them boil for like 1 more minute. But when I go to reheat the soup tomorrow, that will probably soften up the potatoes just as they sit overnight. So I'm not worried about it. This one gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Clam chowder is my favorite soup. This recipe is great. I'm glad that I tried it. I'm glad I know how easy it is to make clam chowder, and I don't know why I never really tried it before. Probably just because the canned version is good enough for me, and I can usually get the canned version on sale, so it's not a big deal. Just popping on here to say that I really didn't articulate this super well, but I spent $10 on the ingredients to make this soup, and that's not even factoring in the ingredients that I already had on hand. So considering I can get a can of the Progresso clam chowder for $2.50, this is one of those, if you want to try it and you want to learn how to make it, go for it. But otherwise, if you have a canned clam chowder that you already enjoy, I don't think that the cost to benefit is really there of making it yourself. And really the only change that I made to this recipe was I omitted the bacon, because for me clam chowder does not need bacon, but feel free to leave it in if you like bacon in your clam chowder. That one is also going to go in my recipe binder. Speaking of recipe binder, I'm not a very materialistic person and I don't typically need a lot of things, but I do have a P.O. box. And I've had some people send some stuff to my P.O. box. When my subscriber sent me this broccoli cheese soup, she also included a handwritten note, and I'm gonna include that in my recipe binder and save the note that she sent me. And I think that's a really sweet sentiment. Again, thank you, Bonnie, for this. So if you ever wanna send me something, I think that this is such a fabulous idea. Send me like your favorite recipe with a note kind of telling the story behind the recipe. And if I can, I will try the recipe in a video, but I'll also save the recipe and the note and keep those in a binder, and it will just be this really sweet sentiment that I can just build up over time. So that is an end to Souptober day 5. I probably will take the leftover cheeseburger soup and make a pot pie or something out of it tomorrow. But for today, we're just doing the soup. Again, let me know if you have any tips or tricks or suggestions, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you again tomorrow for Souptober day 6.